Feels good. Feels good to be back. It's been far too long. Took a good little week off, but now I'm back. So today I want to talk about the three veterans that this season means the most to. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles, we all know, have a bevy of new players, whether they be young, whether they be guys from different teams that they picked up on the free agent market. But I believe that these veterans are still going to be key. So like I said, I want to talk about the three that I think are going to be the most integral to the Eagles' success. So let's get into it.
You want Philly?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and it is Philly the podcast. So today, like I said, I want to talk about three veterans that I think have the most to win and lose this season. So it's going to be a tough one because I think that there's a lot of guys on this team that I'm going to be looking at. But we're going to look at three vets, and we're going to try and keep it to vets. But before we get into that, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, join the family. We are on the road to 4K, and I promise you, I won't be taking these long little vacations anymore. That was it. That was my off-season break. I hope you guys are okay with that. I'm okay with it. Now let's get back into the content. So the first guy that I'm going to talk about, should I do this in order? I guess I will. I'll say number three, right? Number three. I'm going to say Jaquiski Tartt. I think that Jaquiski Tartt, and I know that he's only here on a one-year deal. I know that, this is, he's kind of at an age that, is he going to be a starter? Is he going to be a fringe guy? Is he going to just be a veteran leadership? Is he going to be a backup? What is he going to be? I think that Jaquiski Tartt has a lot riding on this season. Obviously, like I said, a one-year deal with the Eagles, but that doesn't mean that he can't parlay that into something long-term with another team, maybe a 2-3 year deal to kind of end out his career. I think that Jaquiski Tartt is in a position that I think he knows he can play. I think that teams know he can play, but there's so many young options out there that it's going to be hard for him to crack a roster if we're being 100% honest. So I think that if he goes out there, he has a great year. It not only helps the Philadelphia Eagles, right? It helps Jaquiski Tartt. Jaquiski Tartt is not trying to come out here and lay a, lame duck season and maybe get another one-year deal. At 30, I think that he's still looking for a big deal. I think that he understands if he has a great year, he can play himself into a nice little 2-3 year deal with some good money. So, and like I said, it does help the Eagles, obviously, if he is better. And even if he just helps Marcus Epps and, Kayvon Wallace and Anthony Harris and the bunch that we have back there, if he can help them get better, I think that NFL teams will see that as well. Maybe another NFL team has some young guys that they need a veteran presence, and it makes Jaquiski Tartt a little bit more palatable for another team. Maybe he balls out. Maybe he balls out for the Eagles. We extend him for a couple more years, a la a kind of situation with like Malcolm Jenkins, or you look at, guys that we've brought in long term on, later in their career. He could be the type of guy that we do that with. So Jaquiski Tartt is a guy that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on, especially during these training camp battles, right? Because during these training camp battles, we're going to see if he's out there with the ones, which I assume he will be, but not just that. I want to see how he's taking on the role of a veteran. I'm not going to say a leadership role, but as much as the youth that we have in that secondary room and especially the safety room, it'll be nice to see Jaquiski Tartt kind of step up and talk to these guys and be a vocal leader for these guys in that room. So it's going to be a lot of things I'm going to be watching in that safety room. Jaquiski Tartt is kind of headlining it right now. Now, number two, I feel like this is kind of obvious. And number two and number one are going to both be on the same position group. It's going to be defensive line. Look, Brandon Graham, man. Brandon Graham came out and said in a podcast earlier this week, I want to say it was maybe last week it was at this point, but he said that he would be down to sign with another team if and when the Philadelphia Eagles were to decide to move on. If this was his last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, he said he would want to go finish his career somewhere else. He doesn't feel like he's done. We'll see how that how that works out at the end of the year, how he feels at the end of the year. Obviously, coming off of that injury, he's extra rested. You have that whole year off, so he's probably biting at the biting just to get on that field again, right? He just wants to get back on the field. So we'll see what happens, but Brandon Graham, if you realistically want another contract somewhere else, or if you want another contract with the Philadelphia Eagles, you're going to have to produce this year, right? Brandon Graham is he's a hard person to study because he's a hard person to really, put the value on paper, right? Because like you see all the pressures that he gets, you see the pressure rate that he has, you see everything, you see how impactful he has been for the Philadelphia Eagles throughout his career. And I feel like if he wants to come back, right? If he wants to come back, he's going to have to produce. So this is a big year for him. I think that he'll be one to tell you, coming into the latter part of his career, I'm not sitting here saying he has to go out there and get 10 sacks. I'm not sitting here saying he has to go crazy and have a career year, but he has to be, one, a leader, which I think that we're all very confident in him being. He has to be a leader for that defensive line group. And two, he has to be productive in the snaps that he will, get. I don't think that he's going to be the predominant edge rusher guy. I don't think that he's going to be I don't know. It's tough. I don't know if he's going to be the starter, right? Because you got a Josh Sweat, you got a Milton Williams that they really like, you got Hassan Riddick, you got all these guys on the edge, Taron Jackson, so many guys on the edge that really played well last year. In the absence of Brandon Graham, they all played well. Were they world beaters? No, not by any imagination, but they were very good, and they put in their work. And now coming into year 2, you assume that they're going to get better, right? So where does that leave Brandon Graham? I'm just throwing stuff out there. I still believe that Brandon Graham will be a very, very productive player for the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, I'm not putting his production on paper. I'm not saying he has to have 10, 15 sacks. He has to go have 100, tackles for loss and all this craziness. I just need to see you when you're out there making disruptive plays. What we've seen throughout his career, getting to the quarterback, maybe not necessarily taking him down, but making him make a bad decision. Now you have such a better secondary that those QB hurries, those QB rushes, those QB hits can turn into interceptions, can turn into, big plays for the defense, because now we got some guys back there that can definitely play some ball. And it's no slight to anybody we've had before, but secondary's always been a weakness for us. And now you can't really say that. I think that at the very least, on paper, you have a bunch of guys that can go out there and ball out for you. So it comes down to Brandon Graham, again, going up there, being productive in the situations that we're going to put him in, getting those QB hurries, making QBs, second think, and maybe even going on the inside. I don't see why we would really need him to do that anymore, since we have so many defensive tackles. But obviously, he's been a guy that's moved to the interior defensive line, gotten some really good production out of that area as well. So I look for him to just continue that, and if he can continue that, there's no reason why I don't think the Eagles should say, all right, let's give him another 2 years, let him retire a Philadelphia Eagle. So far, I have Jaquiski Tartt at number 3. I have Brandon Graham at number 2. Now, number 1, if you didn't think I was going to say this, you didn't watch football last year. You didn't watch my show last year. It's going to be Fletcher Cox. Look, Fletcher Cox is obviously on a 1-year deal. Most likely going to be the end of his career. I don't want to, put a nail in his coffin. I'll let him do that himself. But, it looks like it's going to be the last year, at least, of his Eagles career. We'll see if he wants to move on to somewhere else. But this is legacy time now. How are you going to be remembered, right? Obviously, Fletcher Cox has had some of the best years in his career as a Philadelphia Eagle, that we've seen out of the defensive tackle position since, Reggie, or defensive line position since we've seen like a Reggie, right? There's not many players that you can compare Fletcher Cox to. Fletcher Cox was 1A, 1B to Aaron Donald for a while. Now, Aaron Donald is a freak of nature and still the best defensive lineman after 10, 11 years. Fletcher Cox fell off a little bit. Fletcher Cox is a bigger guy. Fletcher Cox is more, there's more size to him. Aaron Donald is just a freak. Like, the way he's built is just crazy. But Fletcher Cox slowed down. It is what it is. He was the guy on that defensive line for so long, had to take on so many blocks in that interior. We just waited too long to get him a Hargrave. We waited too long to get him a Jordan Davis. I think that we put way too much on Fletcher Cox's plate throughout his career, and now Eagles fans are a little bit jaded because we expect him to go out there and get us 8 to 10 sacks every year, which is just not really realistic for defensive tackles. So it is what it is. I think that his his career as an Eagle, he's a Hall of Famer in my book. I think a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm not really even second guessing it. So, but this is legacy time. This is, what can you add to your resume? Can you go out there, have another Pro Bowl season? Can you go out there, have another All-Pro season? Can you go out there, help your team win another chip? Like, there's so much that I'm sure is going on through Fletcher Cox's mind. This is not just another year of football, in my opinion, for him. This is your legacy. This is what people are going to talk about when you retire, right? Like, Philadelphia fans are going to say, hey, I remember that 2023 year when you came out and said, this is it, but I'm going out fighting, right? And that's all I want to see. So there's not pressure on him in the sense of, oh, if he doesn't perform, he won't be here. I mean, if you dig deep, there may be, right? There may be something there with a Jordan Davis backing him up, but I don't think so. But either way, there is no pressure in that sense, in my opinion, but there is pressure in the way of how you want to be remembered by Philadelphia Eagles fans. Like I said, I'm not sitting here talking junk about him. I love the guy to death. One of my favorite players of all time, will probably go down as top 3, top 2 favorite players of all time. And I would love to see him come back as, some type of coach in some type of coaching capacity. I'm not sure if that'll happen, but there's pressure, man. And like I said, I don't want to sit here and act like there's any doubt of what his career was. But if he goes out there and bombs it, like Jason Peters, like let's look at Jason Peters. Jason Peters had an amazing career. Some of us just say, let's forget the last 2 years. Some of us will not let go of those last 2 years. So to me, I just kind of forgot the last year of Jason Peters and was like, it's okay. I remember everything else. You were amazing. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to remember the good and forget the bad. But some people do that with Fletcher Cox? If he goes out there, has a terrible year. Last year, people were upset with the lack of production that he had. So if this is the second year in a row that people are upset with his lack of production, will that change his legacy at all? I don't know. For me, it's a definite no. For me, it's a no dog. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. It's just something that you got to think of. But you guys let me know, what 3 veterans do you think are have the most pressure, right? I guess that's the easiest way to say it. What 3 veterans do you think have the most pressure? But tonight we are going to be live. We're going to do a round table with my guy, obviously Big Game James, and then we're going to have George Carmi, and we're going to have my guy Ruben on as well. So I hope to see you all there. But other than that, I apologize for the long wait. I love you guys. I missed you. I hope you missed me too. We got merch coming out. We got a lot of good things coming out. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly. And we are out here. Peace!
Everywhere. This is for you.
Fly Eagles Fly.